Chapter 11. Happily Ever Aftershock. The last guest had stumbled out into the Portland night 20 minutes ago, leaving behind only the lingering scent of expensive cologne, craft cocktails, and success. The alchemist and the anarchist stood in the aftermath of its triumphant opening, chairs stacked on tables, empty glasses lined up like soldiers awaiting orders, and the satisfied silence that came after a battle well fought and decisively won. Chloe moved through the space with the methodical efficiency of someone who'd closed countless bars, but tonight felt different. Every surface she wiped, every bottle she capped, every detail she attended to belonged to something she'd built rather than simply inherited. The weight of ownership, not just financial but emotional, settled around her shoulders like a comfortable jacket. Julian stood behind the bar, methodically cleaning his tools with the same reverence he'd once reserved for rare spirits. His jacket hung over a nearby chair, his sleeves rolled up, his usually perfect hair mussed from running his hands through it during the evening's controls chaos. The transformation from polished mixologist to working bartender was complete, and Chloe found herself falling in love with this version of him all over again. Preliminary numbers are insane. Marcus called from the office where he'd been tallying the night's receipts. "We did 3 times our projected opening night revenue. The waitlist for reservations is already pushing into February." "Good problem to have," Chloe replied, but her attention was focused on Julian's reflection in the mirror behind the bar. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read, soft, contemplative, tinged with something that looked like wonder. Marcus emerged with a bottle of their most expensive champagne, Dom Perignon, that they'd been saving for a special occasion. "This seems like the right time," he said, popping the cork with practiced ease. "To the best damn opening night Portland's seen in years." They toasted among the wreckage of their success, the champagne tasting like possibility and vindication, and the kind of satisfaction that came from proving doubters wrong. But even as Chloe smiled and accepted congratulations, part of her attention remained fixed on Julian, who seemed unusually quiet for someone who just watched his career dreams come true. After Marcus left, promising to handle the morning inventory, they found themselves alone in the space that had consumed their lives for the past 6 months. The silence was comfortable now, lacking the sharp edges of their early partnership. Chloe finished sacking the last of the chairs while Julian conducted his final inspection, checking locks and adjusting bottles with the obsessive attention to detail that had once annoyed her and now felt reassuring. "We're thinking too loud," she said, leaning against the bar and watching him fuss with the placement of their signature cocktail garnishes. "What's going on in that analytical brain of yours?" Julian paused in his ministrations, his hands resting on the polished wood surface they debated over for weeks, reclaimed oak from a demolished church, dark enough to look sophisticated but warm enough to feel welcoming. "Do you remember the first night we worked together at the competition?" "You mean when you acted like a pretentious ass and I wanted to dump your molecular spheres over your perfectly styled head?" His laugh was genuine, free of the careful control that had once defined every interaction. "I was terrified that night. Not of losing, I'd lost competitions before. I was terrified that you'd see through all my carefully constructed expertise and realize I had no idea what I was actually doing." Chloe moved closer, drawn by the vulnerability in his voice. This wasn't the confident mixologist or even the passionate lover she'd come to know. This was Julian stripped of pretense, honest in a way that made her chest tight with affection. And instead, "You challenged everything I thought I knew about bartending, about hospitality, about what it means to serve people." Julian's gaze swept the bar that perfectly blended their two philosophies. "You made me realize that all my technique was meaningless if it didn't connect with something real." "Julian, let me finish." His voice was steady but urgent, as if he'd been holding these words inside for months and couldn't contain them any longer. "Tonight, watching you work, seeing how naturally you connect with people while maintaining the highest standards, I realized something." Chloe waited, her heart beating faster despite herself. The champagne had left her feeling loose and warm, but Julian's intensity was sobering in the best possible way. "I realized that I'm not the same person who walked into that competition 6 months ago. The man who needed his father's approval, who let Cassandra's opinions matter more than his own instincts, who hid behind molecular gastronomy because he was afraid his actual personality wasn't enough. Julian stepped closer, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. That man was scared of everything: failure, success, vulnerability, connection. And now? Now I'm only scared of one thing. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. I'm scared of losing this. Losing you. Losing what we've built together. The admission hung between them in the quiet bar, honest and raw, and completely devoid of the careful control Julian had once wrapped around every emotion. Chloe felt her breath catch, not because the sentiment was unexpected, but because of how naturally it seemed to flow from him. No hesitation, no hedging, just truth. You're not going to lose me, she said simply. I'm not going anywhere. How can you be sure? Because 6 months ago, I thought love was for people who had time for complicated feelings and messy emotions. I thought partnership was just a business arrangement, and that mixing personal with professional was a recipe for disaster. Chloe reached up to cup his face, her thumb tracing the line of his jaw. Then you showed up with your pretentious cocktails and your need to prove yourself, and you turned everything I thought I knew upside down. Julian's smile was soft, almost shy. Is that a good thing? The best thing. The words came out fierce, certain. You taught me that technique without heart is just showing off, but heart without technique is just wishful thinking. You made me want to be better without making me feel like I wasn't already enough. Chloe. I love you, Julian Blackwood. I love your obsessive attention to detail and your ridiculous collection of specialty bitters. I love how you make me want to create something beautiful instead of just efficient. I love that you put on an apron at Murphy's and served beer to construction workers without once complaining about the chaos. Julian's breath hitched, and she realized he was fighting back tears. I love you too. So much it scares me sometimes. Good. Love should be a little scary. If it's not, you're not doing it right. He laughed at that, the sound breaking some of the tension that had been building between them. Is that your professional opinion, bartender? That's my professional opinion, as someone who spent years watching people drink their feelings and pretend they don't need anyone. Chloe's smile was soft but certain. We meet each other, Julian, not because we're broken or incomplete on our own, but because we're better together than we ever were apart. When he kissed her, it was different from all the kisses that had come before, not desperate or claiming or driven by competition, but soft and sure and full of promise. They stood in the middle of their successful bar, surrounded by the evidence of their partnership, and kissed like people who finally understood what they'd found together. So what happens now? Julian asked when they broke apart, his forehead resting against hers. Now we run the best damn bar in Portland. We perfect our craft, we serve our customers, and we prove that this partnership, professional and personal, is built to last. And when Victoria calls about expansion opportunities, Chloe grinned, the expression full of mischief and possibility. We tell her that the alchemist and the anarchist isn't a concept that can be duplicated. It's a partnership that can only exist between two very specific, very stubborn, very much in love bartenders. Julian's laugh was pure joy. I can live with that. Good, because you're stuck with me now. No more running back to molecular spheres when things get complicated. No more hiding behind efficiency when emotions get messy, he countered. Deal. They sealed the agreement with another kiss, this one flavored with Dom Perignon and the kind of happiness that came from building something real together. Outside, Portland slept on, unaware that in one small bar, two people had just figured out that the best cocktails, like the best partnerships, required the perfect balance of technique and heart, precision and passion, individual excellence and shared vision. The alchemist and the anarchist would open tomorrow to serve customers who wanted great drinks and authentic hospitality. But tonight belonged only to them, a testament to the magic that happened when two people stopped trying to prove themselves and started trying to understand each other. In the quiet satisfaction of their successful bar, Chloe and Julian had found something rarer than the perfect cocktail. They found their perfect match,